So there's been yet more drama in the past couple of days, and against my better judgment I feel compelled to respond. For those who don't know, I was once in a quote-unquote relationship with Felida the Geek. This ended when she finally broke me and the stress manifested physically and she came close to the total destruction of a human being. Fully aware of my symptoms, she changed her Skype name to Dice to draw attention to her own illness, uploaded a video about what a victim she is, and also essentially made the breakup public immediately when I had explained I wasn't in any sense well enough and had effectively begged her not to. The first 6 months of my recovery were a living hell of anxiety, sleepless nights and recurring thoughts, sometimes reliving mental trauma, a fact known by everyone who knows me. I needed to put out a cathartic account of this relationship and did so, though people who don't understand consider that this was somehow wrong, when A, I had no choice, and B, I had not been granted discretion when I needed it. Why should she get it just because she suddenly wants it? Due to my state of mind and the haste with which it was put together, there were a couple of inaccuracies which I later clarified in the descriptions. Is it true that I mentioned her dialing in the next air doll off the conveyor belt within 2 weeks? Yes, that's true, but to anyone who isn't a sociopath, and a stupid one at that, it should be blindingly obvious the point was the context, the callousness, and yet another pointer to how rushed, how forced, how, like herself, utterly void and artificial her relationships are. This was when I had seen her for what she is, but still suffered the cognitive dissonance of an abuse victim. I remember you, James, and I comparing her to a Dalek, with that one cell in a billion, which is actually human. She acted poor victim with a mental problem, while dusting herself down, waltzing away, and whistling and, I gather, showing off just how happy she was. I had, by her own admission, felt the whole thing had gone too fast, had wanted time away from her, had had difficulty breaking free of her. I know of one other ex of hers who will tell you the same thing. One does not simply escape Felida. All of this is relevant for reasons which will become clear. My activity towards her since this time has consisted of the following: refusing to read a text she sent to my private BlackBerry, refusing to open an unlisted video she tried to send me. In fact, until documented gate about a month ago, I could not see or hear her at all, and didn't even like catching a glimpse of her name or thumbnail, and I have never been to her channel since the meltdown. Defending friends against her thugs in a prolonged campaign of harassment in which she was known to be complicit. Briefly discussing the notion of contacting her through you, James, in the hopes this might help end said campaign, before I concluded she wouldn't be that reasonable. Indeed, when you, James, absent-mindedly mentioned a message, forgetting we had changed our minds, Felida arrogantly assumed it was a message specifically from me and used her "moved on" slogan, irrelevant to anything that was happening. Her activity towards me includes her treatment of my friends. To clarify, to most members of that group, who would go on to say my video series on Felida was, if anything, far too kind, it was clear she was the abusive party from fairly early on, with people making secret, separate calls to get away from her, and there being a kind of Operation Rescue Alex among some members who will not be named. To any witness to that relationship, besides possibly chthonios and Tony, if they ever really counted, it is an empirical fact. Felida was the abuser, and it has been Felida who has since lied, the latter being obvious anyway due to her typical lack of consistency. The sending of unwelcome messages via a mutual friend after an agreed cut-off, sending the text and unlisted video, and more recently a blog ironically called Breaking the Silence, but which should really be called The Ever-Changing Story, launched a failed smear campaign, and recently tried yet again to contact me through a mutual quote-unquote friend. Anyone who knows me knows I can now be triggered and may speak or act somewhat unauthorized where Felida is concerned, but that I have been doing a lot better lately. I am enjoying my current relationship and have mainly focused my YouTube channel on reviews and such, and I'm working on a second book. In fact, my review of the latest Doctor Who episode would be up by now if it weren't for the recent drama. Chthonios was never a main part of our group, not around all that much, and would often play video games, having us in the background, so it is to some extent understandable he wouldn't be up to speed, and no one ever told him he couldn't remain in contact with Felida. Admittedly, it has often annoyed me the way he seemed to interpret things, and he seems to absorb Felida's version of events like a sponge while not taking in what others say to him, but I digress. Chthonios has witnessed freakouts of mine in group, and each time things were patched up and people explained things to him. As I recall, he even left the group once because of me. I'm not blaming him, I do that too. He had also been blocked previously, months ago, because of a Felida-related episode, and then again for his perceived support of Tony as he stalked and harassed OldeVampyr and still boasted of revenge porning her, something none of that group of shaven chimps has ever once spoken out about, Mamika even trying to blame OldeVampyr, so we have victim blaming in there too. This all led to a 2-hour discussion. About an hour with Chthonios and I, and then about an hour with me, Chthonios, and OldeVampyr. I will note at this point that one thing raised was his use of the term delusional, one of Felida's stock slogans from her routine script when attempting to discredit an abuse victim who dares speak out, along with psychotic, obsessed, and so on. And when confronted, he persuaded me that had nothing to do with Felida, and he was barely in contact with her, and my concerns were placated. The title of his latest drama video, in which he brings somebody into drama for the crime of asking not to be dragged into drama, contains the word Delusion Gate. It never ceases to amaze me how often, when Chthonios, Glut, Mamika, or other Felida fundies are talking, you can still see Felida's anus moving. This is what we attempted to explain to Chthonios. We are not asking you to take sides or to choose, but if you are on Alex's contact list or in any group with him or connected to him in any way, you need to act as if he is a traumatized victim of abuse at the hands of Felida, even if you doubt it. We are not trying to convince you she is evil or never to speak to her, or go to her and her friends and make accusations for us. It is simply erring on the side of caution because Alex needs this for his mental and emotional recovery. And we have to be able to trust you. You must promise never to bring up F-word. Back then we all agreed to refer to her in code, and F or F-word were most universally accepted. Chthonios kept trying to interrupt, to say words to the effect of, "Yeah, but I don't want to take sides," or, "Yeah, but I'm a neutral party," and so on, when this had absolutely nothing to do with anything. He just wanted to repeat the same mantras. Note how what I told you we explained to him took just a few seconds. I'm betting 99% of those listening understood perfectly well, and I doubt any of you needed to skip back to hear it again, for it to get into your heads. 2 hours. 2 headbanging hours. A few days ago he messaged me privately on Skype, totally out of the blue. He told me my Yahoo account was sending out spam and might have been hacked. I replied, "Shit, thanks for telling me." Any reasoning intelligence would have taken that as an indication I was about to check the problem. In fact, my hand was hovering over the mouse, ready to check immediately, when the rabid pigs controlling Chthonios' brain decided to add, "This comes from she who must not be named," or words to that effect. I replied, "Oh, so it's bullshit then." He said, "No idea." Now, even if you are not someone who truly knows Felida, i.e. someone who knows if something comes from her, "Oh, so it's bullshit" is totally reasonable, know this. Felida and I exchanged emails very briefly around the time of the breakup. I never added her to an address book, because I've never had an address book on any email account in my entire life, so no one, even close friends, family or partners, I ever added to an address book. And guess what? I made sure to erase any trace of her once we were done. I definitely removed the incoming mail from her, and I am almost entirely certain I remembered to erase outgoing mail. In what sense is Felida the Geek a contact of mine? My initial dismissal then turned to suspicion, and I reasoned that the only reason Chthonios could have for mentioning F needlessly, unless he truly is the stupidest fucktard who ever walked the earth, was that Felida, having licked her wounds after being beaten and made into a self-confessed liar, her smear campaign in tatters, simply wanted me to know she had managed to hack my Yahoo account, something she is known for doing in the past, but in such a way as she would have deniability. That is how she works. It really is. I would also point out that if reality were the way Felida painted it, she would have asked for her name not to be brought up unless there were a reason, which there demonstrably wasn't, or if I asked, which I didn't. I was clearly about to check, until he mentioned her. I felt the account, which I barely use anyway, was contaminated, and vowed never ever to return to Yahoo again. So, well, waste of effort there, even if you meant well, which you can't have. Nothing human-shaped, no matter how approximately, is that fucking stupid. Chthonios then broke his promise a second time, but worse still, copying and pasting a direct message from her, my abuser. Of course, I refused to read it, catching only dice. Hastily types that I did not want to be contacted again, blocked and removed him. Even if he is so dumb he can't tie his own laces or wipe his own arse, there is not a chance in hell, he imagined, I would or could respond any other way. Unfortunately, Chthonios' understanding of the term neutral seems to be ignore what you dismiss as drama, so you don't know your facts, then shoot your mouth off regardless because of your own butthurt over what you knew would happen, not realizing your ignorance and stupidity are actually dangerous. I have not seen his video since I know it contains elements of a message I refuse to read or hear, but have been told key points not related to any message from F. Chthonios admits I responded to the initial information in a reasonable way and which indicated I had understood and would act on it. Ergo, mentioning her was needless, as I have said. He also admits to referring to F as she who must not be named, acknowledging that she was not to be mentioned. I would also point out that using code for her is a bit fucking pointless if you're about to send that same person a Skype log without the slightest motherfucking warning, you fucking cunt weasel. And yet, in the comments section of that very video, Chthonios denies there was any such understanding, or that mentioning her was needless. This moron is actually dumb enough to lie by contradicting his own video on his own video. And apparently that 2-hour conversation, the latter half of it witnessed by a third party, never happened. So, make it up as you go along, don't care if you can't keep your lies straight, and ignore the fact evidence and witnesses invariably go against you. Is Felida fucking contagious now or something? On that self-same comment section, exactly where I mentioned not wanting to be contacted by my abuser, Felida the Geek, commented directly to me. As I had already stated, I was leaving that section behind and deleted notifications from my inbox as they appeared, but people I know have seen it. Apparently, she didn't even deny being an abuser this time. People have criticised me in the past for not wanting to be in contact with anyone in contact with F-word, some even describing it as childish, not understanding much of what I've done that people don't like is caused by shit like this, which I have simply tried to avoid. Chthonios has proved that I was not paranoid. My instincts were correct. Since the buzzword delusional brings up the mental health smear campaign crushed weeks ago, I suppose I'll bother to address Felida's pitiful response, about which I believe I've heard enough to go on. 1. If I was constantly interrupted and would furtively mute myself or switch my camera off, isn't it a bit convenient this only ever happened in one-on-one calls with the same individual and never once in hundreds of hours of group calls, often including video, across a 2-year period? They also never once happened in all-night blog TVs where I appeared with camera with dozens of witnesses. What is the real webcam story? She made me feel bad about my tics, and I eventually put my foot down. 2. Sectioned is a specific term, involuntarily hospitalized to assess if someone is a danger to themselves or others. Even if you believe every single thing stated in her video, to infer I had ever been sectioned would still be a total guess. Documented does not mean speculated. This is not compatible with her original claim, therefore it is irrefutable that she lied. QED. That video was a de facto confession to lying.